Right, so it's not exactly breaking news that many of our political leaders have completely shamed themselves over this situation in Gaza by choosing to side with the Israeli occupiers and oppressors in their disproportionate response to the October 7th attack by Hamas, an attack which daily appears to point to more and more of the casualties of that night being perpetrated not by Hamas, but by Israeli forces themselves. But it's not just the politicians, as some trade unions have also been pretty hopeless in their responses too. And for a long while, one of the biggest has been seen as one of the worst for this, the Sharon Graham-led Unite Union, and the attitude towards anti-Semitism meted out. How the union chooses to handle that was a story before this latest escalation in the ongoing Israel Palestine conflict, but since then her leadership of the union has led to further alleged anti-Palestine sentiment and woeful responses, demanding Graham show some spine on this matter. Right, so Unite the Union under Sharon Graham and the matter of anti-Semitism and of the genocide we're currently watching still unfold in Gaza by Israeli forces. Trade unions aren't just about workers' rights, you see. Yes, they are about that, but it isn't just about that. As much as the mainstream media might like you to think, it's all about disrupting your life with strike action and trying to get people's backs up, getting better deals for workers as they are doing so. That's when they do that. It is, of course, a matter of last resort when it comes to that. But when they're politically affiliated trade unions, like Unite is, as one of the parties backing the Labour Party financially, they're supposed to stand up for, yes, the interests of ordinary working class people, but also the working class in and of itself, and also associate itself with sister organisations and trade unions internationally, and show solidarity where it is needed. They have leverage even on the international stage. And given that Unite is the second largest trade union in the UK, it's certainly got a lot of weight to lend to that. What a pity, therefore, it is currently led still by somebody who seems clear and intent on choosing not to do that. Sharon Graham is seen as close to Keir Starmer, so there's a red flag for starters. This was pretty much nailed on when she invited him to speak at Unite conference last year, and allegedly made the demand that anybody who wasn't very happy about that wasn't to protest at his speech, but to sit down, shut up and listen. She talks of holding him to account and talks of Labour not taking Unite money for granted, yet Unite member dues are still flowing into Starmer's Labour's coffers as much as they ever have, it being totally unclear what we members are paying for. I'm a Unite member. I'd like to quite know that. Since all Starmer does is scrap anything he's already promised or pledged, does he not? So what exactly are we paying these dues for? Why is it that you haven't actually stopped the money then, Sharon? Anyway, that's another video for another day. It's the Unite response to anti-Semitism and the situation in Gaza that she's caused some particular ire amongst members for more recently. Unite already have a history of having banned showings of the Jeremy Corbyn film The Big Lie in Unite buildings on the grounds they claim it is anti-Semitic, despite there being nothing of the kind featured in the film at all. It's an excellent piece of work. She banned a book signing by the excellent Middle East investigative journalist Asa Winstanley in his book Weaponizing Anti-Semitism, which was intended to go along with one of those showings in Bristol. She has invited much criticism for actions along these lines that have been allegedly linked directly to her. Shortly after the Hamas attack on October 7th, the Labour Party held its annual conference, and Palestine solidarity is always a feature of that. However, the Palestine solidarity event had come in for restrictions from the party due to, certainly at that time, everything being blamed on Hamas for what was going on October 7th. Obviously, that picture is a lot clearer and a lot more nuanced than that now. Those backing Israel at the time, though, were crowing loudly. Never mind that Gaza is an illegally occupied territory, and this was resistance to that, whether you agree with the methods used by Hamas or not. And for the record, I do not. I don't back violence in any way, shape or form. It's not constructive. But anyway, this event was organised by Unite. This Palestine Solidarity event, organised by Unite, is an annual fixture. But this time round, Sharon Graham apparently wanted it banned. She tried getting a union rep to do this for her, do her dirty work for her. And they apparently told her to get stuffed, do her own dirty work, or worse to that effect. She didn't show up to do so, and so the event went ahead. Palestinian Ambassador Hussam Zomlot was a guest speaker, no less, so it's quite a big and important event. As we moved on to late October, the silence on the genocide unfolding from Unite's leadership was getting a little bit much for some Unite members. The Unite leadership apparently convened an emergency meeting to deal with their silence on the matter, and the result was that Sharon Graham stayed silent. By October 25th, she still hadn't made a single comment on social media anywhere on Gaza. Members wrote to Graham directly, getting rude responses in some cases, branches passed motions demanding better of the leadership. And you have to bear in mind here that it is actually the Union's policy, it is Unite Union policy, to support Palestine against Israeli occupation. So all of this is in dispute with its own constitutional position. The Graham faction has even gone so far as to smear elected members of the executive by putting out a statement saying Sharon Graham was all for backing an unconditional ceasefire, but was blocked by pesky factional members of the executive, and she had her hands tied. There's nothing she could do. Well, her conduct up until that point made this utterly unbelievable. And besides, the details of that briefing then came out, which revealed the International Department of Unite were not being involved at all, and that they were actually considering a TUC motion on the Gaza situation and eventually voted it down because they felt it didn't go far enough. That was despite including an unconditional ceasefire as part of it. So the Unite management's conduct thus far in regard to Gaza has not been a good one. And following an alleged diktat to executive members that they were not to march under Unite banners in demonstrations against Israel's genocide in Gaza and in support of Palestine, well, nothing quite says which side you're actually on than that, does it? Well, let's bring things up to date with the letter Unite members instigated by activist Tony Greenstein that has been issued to Sharon Graham, which follows on from a very weak call for a ceasefire the Union finally issued on the 3rd of November. It is quite scathing, and I'm rather proud to be a signatory of it. It reads, "Dear Sharon Graham, as a result of our letters of the 30th of October and 1st of November, and other representations, including from London and Eastern Region, you finally agreed, after nearly 4 weeks of an ongoing genocide by Israel, to issue a statement on November 3rd calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. The statement was, however, pitiably weak. There was no mention of genocide or ethnic cleansing. There was no mention of the war crimes perpetrated by Israel, the bombing of hospitals, the targeting and murder of journalists, academics and doctors, to say nothing of the bombing of residential areas or the murder of children, which now stands at over 8,000. There was no mention of the fact that Israel has imposed a food, water and fuel blockade on the Gaza Strip, resulting in starvation according to the United Nations. Collective punishment of a civilian population is an egregious breach of international law, yet the statement treats the Palestinians and the Israeli state as equally responsible. It is not Hamas which possesses an air force, but Israel. It is the Israeli state which is carrying out the carpet bombing of Gaza with the intent of forcing Palestinians out altogether. The statement treats the genocidal attack on the people of Gaza as equivalent to the breakout from the world's largest open-air prison on October 7th. Israel has occupied the Gaza Strip for 56 years, imposing a suffocating siege on it since 2007. This report from Vatican News of the 16th of December gives just one example of Israel's war crimes. Israelis have opened fire on Gaza's Christians. Following heavy bombardment overnight of the area around Holy Family Latin Parish in Gaza City, dozens are reported dead, and reports continue to arrive that shooting by Israeli snipers continues during these hours. A statement released by the Latin Patriarchate of Jerusalem confirmed that an Israeli sniper murdered 2 Christian women inside the Holy Family Parish, where the majority of Christian families have taken refuge since the start of the war. An even more horrifying massacre took place on the 17th of December. Al Jazeera reported that Israeli bulldozers have crushed Palestinians who were taking shelter in tents outside Kamal Adwan Hospital. Dozens of Palestinians are reported to have been buried alive. These are Nazi-style massacres, and yet you have said nothing and done nothing since issuing your statement. You were happy to wave the Ukrainian flag, but you haven't waved the Palestinian flag or expressed any sympathy with the thousands of murdered Palestinian civilians, not least children. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres accepted that there was a context to October 7th. Many Israeli civilians died at the hands of the Israeli military. See, Israeli forces shot their own civilians, Kibbutz survivor says. Unite at its 2023 policy conference passed motions supporting boycott, divestment and sanctions and affirmed that Israel is practicing the crime of apartheid. That should have informed Unite's statement. The statement treats one of the world's most powerful militaries and the resistance of the Palestinians as equal. Your claim that Israel's goal is to eliminate Hamas is untrue. Why bomb homes, schools and ambulances if that was the case? Were the dead children also Hamas terrorists? The statement says nothing about what Unite intends to do. You have done nothing to publicise all the previous national demonstrations. Are you going to ignore the one on January 13th too? There has been no national Unite presence on the marches to date. We demand that you publicise all future demonstration, that you provide the resources necessary for Unite members to attend, that Unite nationally is present on the march together with its banner, and that Unite has a speaker at the rally. A leaked Israeli intelligence document makes it clear that Israel's intention is to repeat the Nakba in 1948 when 750,000 Palestinians were expelled. If Israel succeeds, this will be a prelude to ethnic cleansing on the West Bank, where there has been a reign of terror in the past 6 months. Over 250 people have died since October 7th. Vast areas of Area C have been cleansed as Israeli settlers and the army attack farmers. None of this is recognised in your statement. Netanyahu has compared the Palestinians to Amalek, whom God instructed the Israelites to exterminate, yet Unite's statement ignores this. Open calls in Israel for the extermination of the Palestinians are being made, and Israel's army is doing just that. By blocking fuel, babies on incubators and people on dialysis machines have already died. It is time for Unite to show that the situation in Gaza is an urgent one and to mobilise its members. We give the Labour Party over £1 million a year. We should be demanding that Keir Starmer makes way for someone who is not a Zionist without qualification. At the moment, he is nothing more than Sunak's echo chamber. Sharon Graham and her team have succeeded in doing little more than infuriate members on the matter of Gaza and Israel, and it doesn't seem likely that's going to change anytime soon. Why, when she's clearly making herself unpopular in this, is beyond me. I don't know what she hopes to gain from it. Is her closeness to Keir Starmer leading her to ape his positions, which, as his letter sets out clearly, is just a reflection of Rishi Sunak's? She's been upsetting members seemingly from the get-go, and nothing has quite demonstrated the escalation of that than her facing a day in an Irish court. Just due this month, I believe she's due in the dock, herself being accused of being a bad boss. A trade union leader, no less, being taken to court for the very thing trade unions are supposed to exist to stand against. Well, you should definitely watch this video next to get the details on that one. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.